All right, let's just make sure everything is nice and stable here across the YouTube platform before we officially jump in to this Denver Broncos Syndicate Week 13 pregame stream versus the Houston Texans, a game that could very well make or break the Denver Broncos season. The fact that the Denver Broncos are entering December, getting ready to play some meaningful football, I think all of Broncos country can get excited about that. Let's start saying hello to people. We got Von Miller Express in the house saying, "Good morning, Broncos family. Let's go get a huge win today down in Houston. Hope everybody out there in the Syndicate is having an awesome morning, an awesome day. Let's go, Broncos. Doing awesome, Von Miller. Hope you are doing well." We got Antelope in the house saying, "Let's get consecutive victory number 6. We got C. Chain in the house. Let's go, Broncos." We got Jay Fresh Fry in the house. Broncos to the playoffs, baby. We got Kenny Miller in the house saying, "Make it." Again, guys, this is a game that if the Denver Broncos were to win today, they would have a 64% chance to make the playoffs. A win today, plus a couple of other things happening, could propel the Broncos as high as the 6th seed. But a loss today will drop our playoff chances into the 20s. So we can still make the playoffs if we don't win this game today. But our most direct path to making the playoffs is by winning this game. If we win this game today, we will be in the playoffs and we basically will have to fight to stay in the playoffs. So that is what makes today's game for the Denver Broncos so critical. And it's going to be against a really formidable opponent in the Houston Texans, who are rising up the NFL ranks each and every single week. They are the same record as the Denver Broncos right now at 6-5, with their first-year head coach DeMeco Ryans as well as rookie quarterback C.J. Stroud. They have completely turned around the culture in that building, much like Sean Payton is doing here. So this is an awesome matchup for the Denver Broncos, a tough test. It was a game that was initially supposed to be later in the afternoon, but they flexed it to the early window in order to get it to a wider audience because the NFL knows just how high the stakes are for this game. This is the game to unleash Mims, Merlot says. Make it 6, baby. Let's go Broncos, Kenny says. I definitely agree with you, Merlot. I think that the Broncos are going to have to put up quite a bit of points on offense if they want to keep up with the Houston Texans. This game potentially has shootout written all over it. So Russell Wilson is going to have to possibly put the team on his back today. The Houston Texans defensively are going to play a lot of single high coverage. They're going to stack the box up front because they know that Denver wants to run the football and they're going to take that away. So we're going to have to depend more and more on our passing game today. Some more of those deep balls downfield. Brandon Johnson being back is also a key part of that equation because he's another speed threat on the field that really opens things up for us. Notice that the Broncos' deep passing game has been virtually non-existent ever since Brandon Johnson got injured. I don't think that is a coincidence. So I expect with Brandon Johnson being back in the lineup today that the Broncos may see more and more deep shots in this game. Who does everybody want the Final Four for college football to be? I think it should be Michigan, Texas, Alabama, and Washington. I gotta be honest, I don't watch a whole lot of college football in season. I only really watch it to scout NFL prospects. I know Alabama got the big win yesterday in the SEC championship. I feel like Washington deserves to get in, especially after what they did against Oregon. But after that, man, Georgia probably lost their chance to get in, I imagine, after losing to Alabama. But I'm not the most experienced guy when it comes to college football personally. David says, nah, we need to run. Russell needs to manage this game. The problem is, though, David, is Houston knows that Denver wants to run, and they're going to sell out to make it really hard for Denver to run. They're going to put 8 players in the box, more guys than Denver can block, so it's going to be really difficult, I feel like, for the Denver Broncos to run the ball in this game. They're going to have to be able to throw the ball to get the Houston Texans out of some of these single high coverage looks, some of these 8-man box looks. We're going to have to try to get them to be in more 2-high looks. That's when we can effectively run the football, is when they're in those 2-high looks defensively and cover 2 looks, stuff like that. And I'm worried that especially early on in the game, the Broncos are going to see a lot of single high looks and 8-man boxes from the Houston Texans, which is going to make it difficult to run the football. But conversely, it's going to make it a lot easier to pass the football. So this is a game where I feel like we're going to need to really see Russ must cook, and I'm confident he's going to be able to do that in this game. We got Ray Haas in the house saying, "Morning Gage in Broncos country. Good to see you, Ray. Hope you are doing well." Brandon Johnson on the field is going to release Mims on those deep throws. I absolutely agree, Antelope. I absolutely agree. We got DS in the house saying, "Game day." Antelope says, "I'll be honest, I like college football more than the NFL right now." I've been getting into college football a little bit more this year. Like, it's really become a lot more of a fun product over the last few years, for me at least. I've been mostly an NFL guy, but again, I mostly do a lot of my college football watching in the offseason when I'm scouting NFL prospects. Texans are terrible against the pass, DS says. Yes, I mean, we've seen games from the Houston Texans defense where they've given up some big games to opposing quarterbacks. You think about Baker Mayfield lighting them up a few weeks ago in that Tampa Bay Buccaneers game. So that could be a very similar theme in this game. I wouldn't be surprised at all if this is Russell Wilson and CJ Stroud going blow for blow and just trying to see who can outscore each other, basically. Jonas says, "Defense has to show up. I want to see at least 2 turnovers and 3 sacks today. Cheers from overseas." Cheers to you, Jonas. As far as the turnovers are concerned, obviously the Broncos are on a big-time hot streak when it comes to turnovers. They lead the NFL in forced turnovers with 22. 15 of them have come over the last 8 games. The Broncos have been really, really strong in that department. The question becomes, will they be able to sustain that in this game? Because the turnovers do come in bunches, but we have to imagine that there's been some games out there, if the Broncos don't get those turnovers, they don't win the game. I think especially to the Minnesota Vikings game, if the Broncos don't get those late turnovers, they probably don't win that game. So it's going to be interesting to see if the Broncos can continue to get those turnovers against Houston. And if they can force Houston into a couple of mistakes and get those turnovers, I feel like that is definitely an advantage to the Denver Broncos. David says, "Do you think Russell Wilson can throw for 250 plus? He's going to probably have to, honestly. I think this is going to be maybe a 300-yard passing day from Russell Wilson because he's going to need to probably put his team on his back, basically, because again, I really feel like Houston's going to sell out to stop the run. The Broncos have got to get him out of those looks, and that all starts with Russell Wilson being able to effectively distribute the ball to his playmakers. Obviously, Cortland Sutton, he's going to be probably double teamed for most of the game, so Jerry Jeudy could make a big impact in this game. Brandon Johnson being back's huge. We've already talked about Marvin Mims. And then at the tight end position, we've got Lucas Kroll, who's been elevated from the practice squad. Wouldn't be surprised if we saw maybe a big chunk play or two to Lucas Kroll. And then obviously we've got Adam Troutman and Chris Manhertz as well. Nate Atkins is actually inactive today in order to make room for Lucas Kroll in the tight end room. I thought that was kind of interesting. So the Broncos know that they may have to potentially get into a shootout in this one, and having Lucas Kroll on the field could be that sneaky weapon that maybe the Texans aren't necessarily prepared for. So keep an eye out on number 87 Lucas Kroll, or number 85 Lucas Kroll for the Denver Broncos, because I really feel like he might have a big play today. Antelope says, "I think the Broncos win a shootout 36-33. DS says, "Trevor Lawrence has the most passing yards of the season against the Houston Texans last week." That is true. That is true. Trevor Lawrence did light up the Texans defense last week. I'm going to be curious to see how Houston comes out and plays after being really kind of gashed by the Jaguars offense last week. So yeah, man, Houston might come out with their hair on fire in this one. Smoking on some Alien Labs, Agent X, best strain I found in Arizona. Let's go, Vaughn. That's awesome. I got some 710 Labs. They're a really good company here in Colorado. I got some Jackson Heights from them, and then I got some Lemon Pucker, I believe it's called. Adam Troutman has to step up offensively. I definitely agree with that, DS. I feel like Adam Troutman has been a sore disappointment. He's been a borderline liability at times this season. The Broncos really need to address tight end this offseason and get a complete, true, all-around tight end who can be a contributor both as a blocker and as a receiver. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if the Broncos' first-round pick this year was utilized on a tight end. That would not surprise me at all. Pre-playoff game today, Antelope says. I mean, this really is a playoff-type atmosphere for the Denver Broncos. This game is as close to a must-win game as the next games on the Broncos' schedule are. I mean, after that, we've got the Chargers, and then we go into Detroit. That's going to be a game that the Broncos can, in theory, afford to lose, but the Lions have looked more and more like a beatable opponent over the last few weeks, and then the Chargers are just the Chargers. You know, they can lose to anybody on any given week because they always get in their own way. But this game will really give the Broncos some wiggle room, a cushion, a little bit of flexibility in terms of being able to make the playoffs this year. Again, we win this game, we basically have to fight to stay in. We lose this game, it's going to be an even steeper uphill climb to make the playoffs. It's not going to kill our season completely if we lose this game, but we are going to need to take care of our own business pretty much the rest of the way except for that Detroit game, and we're going to need some help from other opponents. So the Broncos will get some much needed wiggle room and cushion when it comes to that playoff seeding if we are able to take care of business and win today. We got only 19 people in the house and only a couple of likes. Let's push the like button for Gage and Broncos Syndicate. Thank you so much, Vaughn. I really appreciate it. Trade up for Brock Bowers? You know, that's definitely a possibility. That's definitely a possibility. The Broncos just need that dynamic playmaker at tight end. I feel like Sean Payton wants a dynamic playmaker at tight end for this offense. Brock Bowers could make some sense for sure. Garrett Bowles owns Myles Garrett. Yeah, man, that was an awesome game from Garrett Bowles last week. And this week, he's got a tough task as well. He's got to match up against the number 2 overall pick in this year's draft, or number 3 overall pick in this year's draft, I should say, in Will Anderson. They also have to match up against the number 2 pick in C.J. Stroud. But Will Anderson's going to give the Broncos some big fits up front, I have to imagine. And then on the other side, they've got Jonathan Grenard at edge rusher. So the Broncos have a couple of good edge rushers that they're going to have to face, along with Sheldon Rankins and Malik Collins on the interior. Kurt Hinish is a sneaky good player. The Texans are really loaded on their defensive line, so this is going to be a tough test for the Broncos offensive line, but I'm confident enough to say that they're going to be able to handle that test because they've shown me these past several weeks that they are the most formidable unit on this team and that they're ready for these tough tasks at hand. Their biggest task last week was against the Cleveland Browns, obviously, and they were able to pass that test with flying colors. So if they were able to handle the Cleveland Browns pass rush, then I really feel like they'll be able to handle the Houston Texans pass rush. Why did they activate Ben DiNucci, Garrett says? I believe they did that in order to reward him, maybe for some good practices or something. He's going to get a game check for this one. He's probably going to get an accrued game under his belt. Maybe if he gets an accrued game under his belt this season, then he'll become a vested veteran, and he'll be entitled to some of the veteran benefits in the NFL. So I think that's probably why they called up Ben DiNucci from the practice squad today, even though they elected to make him inactive for the game. Speaking of, guys, let's go ahead and come over here and take a look at the Broncos inactives for this game. We've got Ben DiNucci, obviously, who is called up from the practice squad, and then he is down. We've got J.L. Skinner. He is inactive, probably going to be inactive for most of the rest of the season. He's just not going to see the field, man. He struggles in coverage. He's really just kind of a dime guy who can blitz and lay the wood and play in the run defense. He's really not going to make an impact as a coverage safety this year. Nate Atkins is down, so the Broncos could bring up Lucas Kroll. We got Ronnie Perkins down for this one, Thomas Incoom down for this one, Alex Forsyth down for this one, and then Elijah Garcia down for this one, which I am kind of surprised that Elijah Garcia hasn't gotten an opportunity here for the Denver Broncos, because if there is one big weakness for this Denver Broncos defense still, it's the run defense. They still consistently get gashed up front, and for whatever reason, multiple opponents for the Denver Broncos have just decided to abandon the run game. The Buffalo Bills probably win that game if they don't abandon the run game. The Minnesota Vikings probably win that game if they don't abandon the run game. And I'm not going to say Cleveland wins if they don't abandon the run game, but they probably keep the game a lot closer if they don't abandon the run game. Houston has really good running backs in Devin Singletary and Dameon Pierce. Dameon Pierce normally is a starter, but he's been dealing with some injuries, so they've been kind of riding with Devin Singletary a lot more. The Broncos are in for a really tough task against this front, for this front seven, man. They're going to have to be disciplined in their gaps. They're going to have to be disciplined when they're tackling. The Broncos are just going to have to really be disciplined up front if they want to stop this Houston run game, because I think the Broncos are expecting C.J. Stroud to have this big day through the air, which I'm also expecting, but I also think Houston could come out of left field here and just start running it down our throats with Devin Singletary and Dameon Pierce. And if they do that, I'm worried the Broncos aren't going to be prepared for it. So I'm hoping that Sean Payton and Vance Joseph have a game plan in case the Broncos start running it down their throats. Tyler Lancaster was called up from the practice squad last week, and he played really, really well, I thought, against the run. I thought the Broncos were actually going to maybe call up Tyler Lancaster this week, but they decided ultimately not to do that. So, I don't know, man. I'm concerned that Houston could come out of left field here and just start running the ball down our throat. And if they do that, the Broncos could be in a little bit of trouble here because obviously that takes time off the clock. It limits possessions for Denver, and it limits opportunities for our offense. So, at the end of the day, man, Houston, we need to really be prepared for two things here. We need to be prepared for C.J. Stroud to kill us through the air, and we need to be prepared for Devin Singletary and Dameon Pierce on the ground. We need a good sideline-to-sideline middle linebacker who's fast and can plug holes and hit hard. I would definitely agree with that. I feel like Alex Singleton, although he leads the team in tackles, his play has been disappointing. A lot of those tackles are beyond the line of scrimmage after he's already given up a big play. He struggles in coverage. He's been poor in run defense. Shaquille Leonard is available, but I don't think he's a massive upgrade at this point in his career after he's dealt with a bunch of injuries over Alex Singleton. You look at his PFF grades, and they're almost the same, quite frankly, so I don't think that Shaquille Leonard would be worth the money to bring in, and he wouldn't be that much of an upgrade, honestly, over Alex Singleton. Is Tank Dell playing for the Texans? He's a threat. He is playing for the Texans, and I'm surprised we've gone this long without talking about all the weapons that Houston has. I mean, they've got Tank Dell and Nico Collins at wide receiver, Robert Woods, Noah Brown, who's been sneaky good for them. They've got some really good tight ends, obviously Dalton Schultz, Brevin Jordan, and even Eric Saubert, our old friend Eric Saubert, is there in Houston as well. They've got weapons there, man. C.J. Stroud has got guys that he can distribute the ball to. And they've got more guys than I feel like Denver can effectively account for, honestly. This is starting to look like a mismatch for this Denver Broncos defense, as good as they are. Houston is low-key loaded. I mean, they're a young team, yes, but they are a very talented team. And they are very, very, very well coached. Their offensive coordinator, Bobby Slowick, is running that Kyle Shanahan wide zone scheme. A lot of two tight end sets. That's what differs, honestly, from the Shanahan and the McVay schemes. Shanahan runs a lot more two tight end sets, whereas McVay runs a lot more single tight end sets. So they are kind of looped together as one single scheme, but I actually find that there are quite a bit of differences between Kyle Shanahan's scheme and Sean McVay's scheme. Bobby Slowick in Houston is running that Kyle Shanahan scheme. So, yeah, man, again, it's going to be a lot of outside zone. We are all familiar with that Kyle Shanahan scheme. We've seen it in Denver for many, many years. So we should, in theory, be prepared with how to defend it. Tank Dell is out. Holy crap. All right, let's get the Houston Texans inactives up. I thought Tank Dell was playing. Last night it was pretty sure he was playing. He's not out. No, he's not out. I was pretty sure he was playing. Dalton Schultz is, however. That's right. So that's going to be an interesting one there. Houston is going to have to rely a little bit more on Brevin Jordan, their other tight end, as well as potentially our old friend Eric Saubert. Case Keenum is inactive for the Texans. He's their third quarterback, obviously another one of our old friends. Xavier Hutchinson, wide receiver. Mike Boone, yet another one of our old friends. He's inactive for this one. Myjai Sanders down, and then guard Nick Broker is down for this one as well. So, yeah, man, Tank Dell is going to be up. Nico Collins, another big threat at wide receiver. Noah Brown's up today. He's been sneaky good for him, the former Dallas Cowboys wide receiver. Again, man, they've got weapons. Tank Dell has just been an absolute revelation for him, the rookie wide receiver out of Houston. C.J. Stroud and him have really developed that nice deep chemistry. Nico Collins can work a lot of the stuff underneath. He's a really good X receiver for them. Bigger bodied guy, and same with Noah Brown. I mean, this Houston receiving core is loaded. Jaquan McMillan is going to be in for a big day. Pat Surtain is probably going to deal with mostly, I would imagine, Nico Collins because he's going to be the X guy. Tank Dell, I think, might have to see quite a bit of Jaquan McMillan in this one, and then Fabian Moreau will mostly deal with Noah Brown. So that's who I feel like our DBs are mostly going to have to deal with. And then, again, man, tight ends are just really going to be an impact in this one. We're just going to have to see what Brevin Jordan can do there for this Houston Texans offense. And then also, guys, again, I really feel like we're going to have to try to see what Russell Wilson can do today in this passing game, because I think Houston's going to sell out to stop the run. Russell Wilson might have the chance to have his best game as a Bronco, because this Houston defense has given up some big passing games. We think about what Trevor Lawrence did to them last week, what Baker Mayfield did to them a couple of weeks ago. So Russell Wilson, man, is going to be the big X factor for this Denver Broncos team, in my opinion. How is the Texans' offensive line and our pass rush? The Texans' offensive line has actually been surprisingly good, considering they've dealt with some injuries. Tackles, they're pretty solid. Laramie Tunsil, their franchise left tackle, one of the best in the business. He's been locking down C.J. Stroud's brideside all season. George Frant, their right tackle, has been solid. They're getting left guard Juice Scruggs back, so that's going to be huge for him. He was one of their top picks this year in the second round. They've got Michael Dieter in at center. So Houston's offensive line, it's a little bit mix and match right now, but they've been really solid overall. They've kept C.J. Stroud clean. And then our pass rush, we've had some improvement on the interior pass rush, I feel like, from guys like Zach Allen over the past couple of weeks. And then Baron Browning, obviously, ever since he's been back, I think he's been kind of the key wild card for this Broncos defense. The Broncos winning streak started ever since Baron Browning got back. I don't think that's a coincidence there. Nick Bonito, I'm curious to see if he can have a big day today, along with Jonathan Cooper. I'm curious if Mike Purcell can have a better day than he's had over the past couple of weeks, because Mike Purcell, he's seen a lot of playing time, but I don't think he's played all that well, especially in the run defense, but also in pass rush. I mean, Mike Purcell is a guy that's probably going to get replaced at some point in this offseason. And so, yeah, man, this is going to be a tough matchup for this Broncos front seven. But I think that if the Broncos can win in the trenches today, they will win this game. It's going to be very difficult, but not unwinnable. I would agree, Antelope. I would definitely agree. Now, starting to jump into score predictions for this one, I'm kind of thinking that it's going to be a shootout, much like I alluded to. I think that both quarterbacks are in line to potentially have a big day. I ultimately think, though, guys, that Houston is a little bit further along in their rebuild, and I think that their roster has a little bit less holes than the Denver Broncos do right now, and they have a little bit less weaknesses than the Denver Broncos do right now. And because of that, I am going to pick the Houston Texans to win this game 35-31. I think that a lot of points are going to be scored. I think that Denver is going to put up a very valiant fight. This could very easily go the other way, and Denver could run away with this one. I could see a scenario where Denver is able to run away with this one. But again, guys, it's all about forcing the Houston Texans into a few mistakes, making C.J. Stroud look uncomfortable, which is basically been impossible this whole year. C.J. Stroud looks like a guy that is almost impossible to rattle. You can't blitz him. You can't drop 8. The dude is making complete full field reads as a rookie, which is extraordinarily rare. So C.J. Stroud is one of the best confident looking quarterbacks I have seen as a rookie. I mean, C.J. Stroud is going to be one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL for a long time. I'm very confident in making that statement, because he is having one of the best rookie seasons we've seen in a long time, and he doesn't look like a rookie out there at all. He looks like a seasoned, vested veteran who has seen NFL defenses for multiple years. You can't do anything to rattle him, but if Vance Joseph can find something that works to rattle him, that could be good. If the Broncos can somehow find a way to shut down their 2 running backs in Devin Singletary and Dameon Pierce, that could also be a way to slow down this Houston offense. But again, guys, I just think that this Houston team, they've beaten some really formidable opponents. Not saying Denver hasn't, obviously. We've beaten some really good teams in this 5-game stretch, but Houston, I just feel like, might be the better team going into this matchup. I really hope I'm wrong, and I'm going to be really, really happy if I'm wrong, but right now, I am a little bit concerned that the Broncos' win streak might end here. The only team that made C.J. Stroud look uncomfortable was the Ravens week 1, and I'm not going to lie, I haven't watched that game. I should have gone and looked at that game to see what the Ravens did to rattle him, but yeah, there's clearly a way to make C.J. Stroud uncomfortable. The Ravens proved that in week 1. So if the Broncos can harness what maybe the Ravens did and see if CJ Stroud can be forced into some early mistakes, then the Broncos could jump out to like a 14-0 lead, and that might be the best way for them to ensure a win in this game. Everybody out there in Broncos country, be blessed. Have an awesome day. Go Broncos. Hope we get the win. I got to check out. I got a few errands to run before the game. Everybody be blessed out there. Have a good one, Von Miller. Thank you so much for tuning in, bro. Boomster Film says, I am scared. I am a little scared too. I wouldn't be telling the truth if I said I wasn't scared, but I also think this is a different Broncos team than the teams of past. Sean Payton's going to have this team prepared. This team should know the stakes of this game. They should know what's on the line here. Sean Payton's going to be prepared for pretty much each and every scenario that the Texans may throw at them. I'm confident that Vance Joseph's going to have a good game plan defensively. I really feel like this is a different Broncos team than the Nathaniel Hackett Broncos, even the Vic Fangio Broncos, or even the Vance Joseph Broncos from when he was a head coach. I mean, this is a much more prepared team, a much more disciplined team, and I'm hoping that the Broncos are prepared for what's coming here against a really, really tough Houston Texans team. I'm currently about to go to the game. Let's go Broncos. Let's go fight for freedom. That is awesome, man. All right, guys, speaking of the game, let me go ahead and get the link here for the game stream, because YouTube has been kind of screwing around recently, and they have not been pushing out the content to our subscribers. So I'm going to go ahead and drop the link to the game stream here. Just bear with me, guys. I was scared as heck last week and we whooped them, but this team has a real quarterback. Exactly. That's why I am the most scared about this matchup. Here we go, guys. There is the link to the game. We will be going live here in about probably 20 minutes. I just got to get set up here, and we will be doing live play-by-play, commentary, highlight breakdowns, live film analysis, all that good stuff. So please be sure to join us for the game stream, guys. Those are always a good time. All right, Broncos country, before we dip out of here, please be sure to give me your official score predictions and overall theme predictions for this game in the chat below. I would love to know your thoughts on how you think this game is going to go, and ultimately what you think the final score is going to be. I know I'm not showing a whole lot of confidence in the Broncos right now, but I also could see a very realistic scenario where the Broncos win this game and win this game handedly. So I'm not saying that the Broncos are set in stone going to lose this game, but it's going to be probably our toughest matchup in multiple weeks, and that honestly includes Buffalo and Kansas City, who weren't playing their best football when we got those teams. Houston is playing some of the best football out of all of our opponents right now, and that really does concern me. Jay Fresh Fry says 31-27 Broncos, generally agreeing with my notion that it's going to be a shootout, a potentially high-scoring game. Whatever the over-under is, I would probably take the over in this game, honestly. I think that this game is going to have some fireworks. It's going to be worthy of being flexed into that early afternoon window, the probably most viewed game in the early afternoon window. We got Ian Eagle and Charles Davis calling the game on CBS, so it's getting a big matchup for us, and I'm really excited to see if the Denver Broncos can continue their 5-game winning streak and get potentially up to the number 6 seed in the NFL playoffs. And if they can do that, guys, if we win this game, we will basically have to fight to stay in the playoffs as opposed to fight to get into the playoffs. So, again, guys, this could be a game that makes or breaks the Denver Broncos this year. All right, guys, before we dip out of here, please be sure to leave a like on the stream as well as subscribe and ring the bell so these videos and streams appear in your notification feed. I would really appreciate it, guys. Those are 2 free and easy ways to show your support. Helps tell YouTube's algorithm to push us out and helps us get seen by more and more members of Broncos country just like you and me. And until next time, guys, I am your host, Gage Madrid, saying peace out.
Right on.